Happy Aloha Friday, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. It is 10:30 here in Hawaii, which is time for Spotlight Hawaii. I'm Ryan Kalesh-Suji, joined by Yanji Denise. It is February 26th. Great to see so many of you already tuning in this morning. Yanji, this morning, we're going to be talking to two individuals to talk about a program that is starting up and it was birthed because of COVID-19.
That's right. We are talking to Nicole Lim, who is the Executive Director of Movers and Shakas, and Na'alehu Anthony, who is actually the Executive Director of COVID POW, which is another initiative to spread awareness about the coronavirus here in the islands and how to combat it and bring down the numbers. But he also serves as a member of the advisory board for Movers and Shakas. So we welcome both of you this morning. There's been a lot of talk about this program. Nicole, I just want to start with you, just the basics. What is the program and how does it work?
Yeah, the program aims to attract socially responsible remote workers to come to Hawaii, especially returning kama'aina, and actively contribute to our community. So, there's three main pillars: the people, economy, and caring for Hawaii. So with people, we're hoping to bring back returning kama'aina. We want to promote brain gain in the tech and innovation sectors and increase access to those remote kind of geography independent, high paying remote jobs. With the economy, we're looking to attract a different type of visitor, a longer term, more socially responsible visitor who shares and respects Hawaii's values, and figure out how we can best support a positive impact and experience on both non-residents and the community. And in the third pillar, caring for Hawaii, we want to create that sense of shared stewardship for Hawaii's natural and cultural richness. And we do that through our volunteer projects that our participants will be doing, as well as cultural education, business communication training, and other group volunteer activities like working in a lo'i, doing some beach cleanup and restoration.
That's great. And Nicole, how was this program, I guess, formed? We kind of got a sense of the overall what it is, but how did it start? I mean, who came up with this idea, and what was this concept birthed from, and who were the individuals that kind of thought about bringing this together?
Yeah, the origins of the program precedes me. Actually, it's a group of local CEOs, I call them volunteer CEOs, who during the quarantine, especially during the 14 days quarantine last year, realized that the tourism industry was getting completely ravaged and wanted to do something to help build more resilience in the economy. And so, trying to think about alternatives to that shorter term 7-day visitor and turn to remote workers, who now had, with the kind of greater widespread proliferation of remote work, created new opportunities for returning kama'aina to come home, for non-residents to come to Hawaii as well and contribute to the community.
So my understanding is that 90,000 people applied to be part of the cohort, and you only took 50. So how did you choose the 50? And also, what's the upside for them? Because presumably anybody can come here and work remotely. You don't necessarily need a program like this to actually participate in that part of the economy. So what are the workers who take part in this? What do they get out of it?
Yeah, it was overwhelming, right? Nearly 90,000 applicants for 50 spots. And to us, that's a testament to the fact that people want to come to Hawaii to engage in the local community and contribute and have a more authentic local experience rather than just sit on the beach, which is also very beautiful. And it was a very hard process to narrow down. And we were looking at kind of three main areas. First, everyone had to have, and all our participants do have, full-time remote jobs that they will continue to do while here. So they won't be displacing any local jobs. Two, we looked for people who share and respect Hawaii's values. And three, we wanted to find people who were excited to share their experiences and skill sets to contribute to the local community and volunteer with local nonprofits and startups. And so, the application process was quite onerous, especially in the second round, in the later rounds. It was almost like college style short answer essays, and a video as well. And like you said, people could just come anyways. I think what most people know about the program that they first heard was about this free round trip ticket from the mainland. But that's not, anyone can kind of do that on their own. I think what we have heard and what we're excited about is that people really wanted that opportunity to come and contribute, connect with the local community, and also be a part of a cohort of other like-minded people, both Kama'aina and non-Kama'aina, who wanted to come and contribute, cross-pollinate, and help build more resilience.
We seem to have lost Na'alehu here. We're trying to work to get him back in.
Okay.
So it's just on you, Nicole, for now.
All right.
But we'll get him in when we have the opportunity to connect with him again. But wanted to also just circle back with, that's a lot of applicants, obviously. How difficult was that process to go through each of these applications? I mean, that must have taken some time. And was it at all difficult to sort of reject some of these individuals who may have seemed qualified for this opportunity?
Yeah, fortunately or unfortunately, that process precedes me. Though I, have heard a lot about it. It's always difficult, right? When you can't take everyone. And I think that what we focus on is thinking about this cohort of 50, right, as a pilot to test and learn what are the components that we can help to support that positive experience for non-residents and the community. And the idea is that those components that we are able to vet in this pilot, we'd love to kind of replicate that in a lower touch way for the people who couldn't get in, right? And how do we help facilitate that experience, whether it's in cultural education, whether it's in the volunteer opportunities, whether it's in business communications training, or is it the plane flight? Is it facilitating accommodations? What are those elements that are going to make it positive and mutually beneficial for people coming, but also for our community?
Yunji seems to be muted here. We're
okay. All kinds of tech stuff. Thank you for bearing with us. Na'alehu, thank you. Welcome back. I want to bring in Cyrus Panoy's question and invite you, actually, Na'alehu, to answer this. It's kind of long, but I see where he's going with this. How do we strike a humanitarian balance between this influx of people that will need to be housed in an already dire shortage of Hawaii's housing insufficiency? And what are the barometers that you will use to justify that these people will contribute to the economic growth in our community? So first off, just to answer Cyrus's question, where are these folks going to live? We're talking about 50 people, which shouldn't have a tremendous impact on housing, but we are in a situation where housing is at a shortage. So where are they going to stay, and how do we make sure that they're contributing in a positive way to our economy?
Let me just take the top of that, and apologies for the snafu before. It's one of the challenges of COVID and living in the country, and that's a great question. And I just looked up the rates of folks coming in this week as the economy starts to turn back on and we start to see visitors. And on the 24th, we had 10,500 people come through the airport, more than half of which were visitors. And so when we're talking about 50 people, it's a pretty small number. That said, they are saying that they want to stay, more than a month. And I think one of the things that we have to remember, and why it's so important that this is talking about Kama'aina coming back as well, is that some of them are coming back to stay with family. And not all of them, but some of them are. And I would turn it over to Nicole at this point to kind of articulate what are some of the other places at which folks can lean on to be able to facilitate their stay.
Yeah, we partnered with a few hotels to offer longer-term discounts. So we've encouraged our participants to stay in what is currently very underutilized or under capacity hotels. And as Na'alehu highlighted, 65% of our participants are Kama'aina, and 75% have local family ties here. So we are expecting that some of them will be staying with family and friends. We offered these discounts and these suggestions, but we didn't facilitate those accommodations for the 50. And wanted to reiterate something that Naalehu was touching on, is that it is a small number, but we also have intentionally kept it small because we do see this as a pilot, and we want to test and learn so we can scale responsibly and address local concerns as well.
And what kind of an economic impact do you think this will have? What is the hope here? Because I've heard it described by some people as basically taking a high earning salary, and instead of spending that in the Bay Area, for instance, spending it here. So is that part of the goal as well? Not only to boost sort of the brain power, but also just to get more dollars into the state.
Yeah, exactly. I think supporting local businesses and restaurants, that's something that we've encouraged our participants to do. But I do think that the larger economic impact is on that kind of brain gain aspect. I think it's about the cross-pollination to invigorate the tech and innovation sectors. I think it's about the ripple effects, hopefully, in providing volunteer services to local nonprofits and startups that will create longer lasting impact as well. And, one thing that remote work makes possible is people coming here from the mainland to work, but also Hawaii people being able to do jobs that used to be based on the mainland.
You spoke about the hotels as a partner in this. I'm wondering if you can also share what other businesses, organizations are involved in this as a community effort to help this program and this pilot program succeed. Is it, other co-working spaces? Is it, beyond the hotels? Who else is sort of involved in seeing the genesis of this come to fruition?
I think our biggest group of partners as well is the volunteer organizations, the nonprofits and the local accelerators and startups that we're working with. So our projects fall generally into three areas: workforce development, such as we're working with the Girl Scouts of Hawaii, and our participants are going to create and deliver virtual badging programs for STEM careers, which is super exciting to introduce new career opportunities to our girls. They'll also be working with the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii, which is working with the DOE and 4 high schools on the west side to do problem-based learning projects, which is our participants who are industry experts bringing in real-world problems and challenges that they have faced, and guiding local teachers and students on how to tackle them. And then a second area is around mentoring local startups on different topics like entrepreneurship and technology. And then the third is consulting with nonprofits. So one example of that is one of our participants will be helping the Native Hawaiian Hospitality Association and Native Hawaiian Chambers of Commerce help build online directory for Native Hawaiian owned businesses. So runs the gamut, but we're really excited to work with a very broad range of local nonprofits and startups.
Now, Lehu, when this program was coming together and you were kind of envisioning, as a member of the advisory board, how long do you hope that the participants stay in Hawaii, and is the goal for them to become permanent residents, or sort of what's the end game, if you will, for the individuals?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things that's really important to note is that this is a test project. We weren't sure that we would get applications. I think when I came onto the advisory board, it just started the application process, and there was a question as to whether or not people would want to engage in this way. And so part of this is just using this first cohort and this first set of individuals coming to really figure out what works best. And this is as we go through a whole suite of ideas that have come up in the last year to help to facilitate this idea that economic reopening may be slow and that we need to come up with other ways at which we can not only fuel our economy, but also make sure that we have the right mix of folks here in Hawaii to solve for some of the unique problems that persist here versus other places in the world.
So Nicole, what is that actual time commitment? How long are they in the program, if you will? And then at what point did they kind of either decide to go home or become a Hawaii resident?
Yeah, so the minimum is 30 days, 30 consecutive days. But I would say most people are staying for 2+ months. And during that time, they'll be volunteering at least 15 hours a month.
I'm wondering if you can share just a little bit more about the type of applicants and where they're coming from. Was there a certain population or an area in the United States or beyond where people were applying for this? And has there been any link to a reasoning why, based on geography, that certain people are applying for this role than others?
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about our participants because they are really, what makes the program real. So, our participants, as I mentioned, 65% are returning kama'aina, and it is a very diverse range of people. So 60% are female, they're aged from 24 to 60 plus. They come from a range of industries, including technology, which you would kind of expect, finance and consulting, but also energy, nonprofits, healthcare, education. So a very broad range of skill sets and experiences. And they actually come from a pretty broad range, like actually all across the mainland. So a bunch from Northern California and Pacific Northwest, which you would kind of expect because of technology and a lot of, kama'aina living in those areas. But also from the East Coast, the Midwest, the South, Southwest, basically all over the mainland.
And Na'alehu, I'd love to hear from you. What's the most sort of common misconception about this program? What do you want local residents to know so that we welcome these folks in as opposed to facing them with a little bit of apprehension?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the part for me that's really important to note, and really the first conversation that I had with the creators of this program was really that want to be able to provide pathways for kama'aina to come back. I have two brothers, one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast, who don't have the opportunity to come back. And there are, tons and tons of families that have had families that started here that have had to move away and just can't find their way back. And that has to do with the cost of living. That has to do with the constraints for housing and all the other things that we live with here in Hawaii. And to me, this is just such an important piece of the puzzle to look for creative ways to bring people back.
Obviously during this time, COVID continues to be top of mind. And I'm wondering if you can share some of the COVID procedures that you've gone through to ensure that those coming into the islands are safe, because we know that continues to be a contentious issue with our community. Many saying that there should be more testing for visitors that are coming in. With these members of your cohort and the group, what measures are being taken to ensure that there is some sort of safety around what's happening with COVID-19?
Absolutely. COVID safety is of utmost importance. So all our participants will be going through the state safe travels program like any other person arriving from the mainland. And, we plan to abide by all of the state protocols. We also recognize that each state has different guidelines. So, we have communicated and encouraged our participants to familiarize themselves with both the state and county protocols, especially, as we shift into Tier 3. And all our events are mostly virtual, but, the ones that we are doing in person will be all abiding by the state's protocols. And we're working with, the organizations that we'll be doing those events with as well to make sure that we're abiding by those safety guidelines.
Nicole, I wonder if just from a practical standpoint, if you'd walk us through sort of, okay, I've been accepted to the program, I arrive in Hawaii, what sort of support do they get from the program? And then after that 30 days is up, do they continue to get support sort of as long as they stay here? Are those connections in place, or are you guys already looking at the next round of applicants? How does that actually work for the participants?
Yeah, so people are starting to come in already with the bulk of the programming focused on March. They've already undergone or been a part of a virtual orientation in which we had an hour and a half of cultural orientation with the Native Hawaiian Hospitality Association, so that our participants can understand the Native Hawaiian culture. They will also be participating in Leadership Island Style, which Glenn Faruya will be delivering, so that they're prepared to build those personal relationships that we think are so key, to really understand the unique business culture that Hawaii has. As well as we're having Professor John Okamura from UH Manoa come in to talk about what it means to be a local and how that has contributed to some ethnic inequality. So we really want our participants to understand the local cultural context. In addition, they'll be doing their volunteer projects. They've already been matched up with their organizations. It's really exciting to see it take off, virtually thus far. So they'll continue to do that. And then we'll have virtual pauhanas every Friday with different topics, including local cuisines. Our first one is with a slate of local restaurateurs and chefs. There will also be pauhanas centered around remote work in Hawaii and kind of the business culture. And then, we'll have pauhanas to talk about the volunteer projects as well. And then every Saturday in March, we'll be doing different group cultural and volunteer activities, starting with Bishop Museum to get more understanding or learn more about the Native Hawaiian culture and history. They'll be working a day at Papahana Kuaola on the Lo'i, and doing a beach cleanup in Kahana Bay, and some restoration work out at Kaina Point. So we're working with different local organizations for that as well. And, like Na'alehu and I've been saying, this is a pilot, so we're trying to figure out how do we stay connected and kind of, I think that's where the longer lasting impact is post-program, like how do we, keep that connection with our alumni and think about how to leverage that. Already thinking about the second cohort, probably sometime in late summer, early fall. Thinking of new creative different ideas, and always with the mindset of how do we come up with creative solutions to build a more innovative, resilient, and sustainable Hawaii, and get more of the community involved.
I mean, when you kind of list all those things that are happening, it sounds like a full month of activities that they're going to be involved in. And to some degree, I mean, it comes with some work that they're going to have to obviously do. So I think it speaks to the individual that is signing up for this program, recognizing that you're not just sort of laying on the beach here. There's some things that are going to have to happen, and good to hear all those opportunities for them. As we wrap up here, I want to provide an opportunity for both of you to just share your final thoughts and any other message that you would like to share. We'll start with you, Na'alehu. I know that you work obviously with other areas with COVID and COVID POW, but just any final thoughts that you may have on this.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that there's a real opportunity here to rethink and reset for all of Hawaii, and not just with respect to COVID POW or with respect to movers and shakas, but all of the different programs and ideas that are community driven, that are driven from us wanting to be able to pivot as we look forward to a more resilient Hawaii in the future. And this is just one of those examples. It's in pilot. I think it's really important to our community to start to facilitate these conversations and look at how we can do better as we move forward out of COVID.
And Nicole, any final thoughts that you may have or message?
Yeah, I originally came into this program or heard about this program with a lot of skepticism and concern. And I think that makes me a better leader for this program to really think about how do we go carefully, and scale carefully so that, we can make that positive impact and experience on both the participants and our community. And, to do that means acknowledging sometimes some of that resistance and trying to do different things, be creative, and remind ourselves that it's not a zero-sum game, that we can benefit our community, participants, our culture, our environment, We work together and support each other. As Naalehu mentioned, Movers and Shakas is just one program, a small pilot right now. There's so many different programs and companies dedicated to the same thing, which is how do we build a more resilient and sustainable Hawaii? And I'm excited to be a part of that ecosystem, to support each other, to learn from each other, all dedicated to the same goal.
Well, we've talked a lot on this program about diversifying the economy, and this sounds like an excellent way to start in that direction. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Naalehu Anthony and Nicole Lim of Movers and Shakas. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Wow, great to hear from them. And Ingrid Peterson, who's always a loyal viewer on this, she has a great comment. Sounds so great. You're going to get people wanting to learn deeply about Hawaii and give back here. And that really struck me, Ryan, when she's talking, as you noted, just all the work that they have to do in really learning and appreciating local culture, and really trying to give back. It sounds like a wonderful partnership, because these folks, presumably have the ability to come here and just chill on the beach and do it without this kind of a program. But this really will create that relationship that could really benefit the state.
And as she mentioned, the majority of them have Hawaii ties to the islands, whether they are Kama'aina that have moved away or others who have family members that are here. Really, it's an opportunity to bring those types of candidates back to the islands to be able to work from remotely from back home. And we hear about it so often about how so many of our friends and colleagues have had to move away because of just the cost of living and their inability to just find a job here at times or housing. We definitely know that the brain drain here in Hawaii is a real thing. And so programs like this hope to maybe help break that cycle and bring some people back. We'll see how this works. Again, this is a pilot project. 50 people have been selected, and we'll see how things pan out over the next month or so, and if this will continue.
Yeah, and it must be an exceptional 50, because 90,000, when you think about having to just read all those applications, I'm very interested to meet some of these people, and hopefully we can invite Nicole Lim and perhaps some of the participants on in the future to talk about what they got out of it and just who they are. I think there's a lot of curiosity about the people who are going to take part. We, of course, wish you a great weekend. On Monday, we're starting off another week with another great slate of guests. Lieutenant Governor Josh Green is going to be here. People always have lots of questions for him. What's going to change with safe travels? We're moving into tier 3. What's going on with the vaccine? Dr. Christina Kishimoto, Ryan, is joining us on Wednesday.
And so we've been hearing a lot about schools over the past week. It seems like there's a lot of developments that is happening there as we see these numbers continue to go down. More changes are happening within our schools. We're getting word that there will be allowed to have some form of in-person commencement. That was also announced yesterday. So we'll get a complete update from Dr. Kishimoto on what's happening with our schools and other changes that we can expect to see with classrooms, in-person classrooms resuming as the school year wraps up.
Yeah, so many parents we know are so eager to get their kids back, but how do we do it safely? We're going to be breaking that down with the superintendent. So have a great weekend. We'll see you right back here on Monday at 10:30. Until then, stay safe. Aloha.
Aloha.